Hello and welcome back, and today we're going to be talking about Harris's momentum in key swing states. In fact, she's leading in the popular vote by as much as 5 percentage points, and she's been leading in practically the entire month of August in terms of the popular vote. Not only that, but she's also taken over Donald Trump in terms of the betting odds, having a 52% chance of winning this election compared to Trump's 46% chance. And as you can see, this is a sharp decline from Trump's high of a 66% chance of winning this election just about a month ago. And so we're going to talk about if the election were to happen today, who would actually win? Would it be Trump or would it be Harris? And before we continue with that, make sure to like, subscribe, share, whatever you want to do to help my channel out and join the 4%. And thank you, and back to the video. But now we're going to get to our next piece of news, which is the uncommitted voters. And whether or not these uncommitted delegates, because remember, uncommitted voters scored a few delegates in Minnesota and Michigan, and in the DNC, which is usually an event like the RNC, that is supposed to boost morale for their respective parties. So the DNC is supposed to boost morale for the Democrats. But it is possible that the uncommitted delegates may sort of quell that morale, if you will. Because there could be televised confrontations, like the New York Times says, if Harris essentially does not placate towards these uncommitted voters. And that wouldn't give her the sort of polling bump that Donald Trump saw after the RNC. That wouldn't give her the DNC polling bump if it's like sort of an embarrassing event where the party is in more disarray. We saw the Republican Party was very unified behind Trump, but if we see that the Democrats are not unified, then Harris may fall off in the polls. So we'll see how she'll do with the uncommitted voters in the following weeks. But it seems like most uncommitted delegates are still uncommitted, so we'll see which way their vote will actually go. And this essentially rides on Harris's policy in the future on the conflict in Gaza. So we'll see if these delegates will actually support Harris or not, and whether or not the DNC will be divided. And whether or not the DNC is divided will significantly impact Trump's chances at this election. And the DNC is less than a week from now, so Harris has to figure this out sooner or later, or it may actually help Donald Trump. Also, today is your lucky day because we have another piece of news for you. And it's that this guy, George Helmy, will be the new U.S. Senator from New Jersey. And I'm going to be honest, if you don't know who this guy is, I don't blame you, because I don't know who he is either. If you know who he is, honestly, you know too much about politics, because he is Phil Murphy's chief of staff. Actually, he was Phil Murphy's former chief of staff. He's not even the real deal. He's the former chief of staff for Governor Phil Murphy of New Jersey. He will now be our next United States Senator from New Jersey until presumably Andy Kim is sworn in January. So he's Murphy's close friend and former chief of staff. So I feel like this is a little suspicious. Like a senator leaves due to corruption and then a governor replaces that guy with his friend, but you know, that's just me speaking. The obvious choice would be appointing Representative Andy Kim to the seat to give him seniority, because you know, in the House and the Senate, they're a little stuck up. They're like, if you're not senior to me, if you haven't been here for longer than me, I won't listen to you. So usually seniority is super important, and people will usually appoint the guy who's the most realistic successor to make them senior. So if Andy Kim was appointed now and he wins in November, then he would have seniority over every other freshman senator. So, you know, that's the rationale for picking Andy Kim. But the downsides to picking Kim is it can be seen as a way to influence the election, as incumbency is a strong advantage in terms of congressional and presidential elections. So that's partially why Murphy didn't pick him, but also because he kind of probably just wanted to pick his friend to replace Menendez. That's your piece of news. This guy, George Helmy, who nobody really knows about, will now be a United States Senator. Let's get back to the video. So now we're going to be talking about some approval ratings. I've been keeping track of the approval ratings of Harris and Trump. And in terms of favorability, Harris's favorability is only continuing to increase. And she might even be more favorable than unfavorable at some point in the coming weeks. Her unfavorability is at a net 4%, when just a few weeks ago it was at a net 17%. Donald Trump is having a similar phenomenon, but he hasn't had as much momentum as Harris. His net unfavorability is about 9%, compared to about 12% just a couple weeks ago. So both candidates seem to be increasing their favorability, which is helping them in terms of gaining votes on RFK Jr., as RFK Jr. is losing support in this election. But it seems like overall Harris is actually gaining votes on Donald Trump as well, leading by a net of 2.7 according to the 538 average. So Harris is leading Trump in terms of the popular vote, but what matters is the electoral vote. So the electoral vote is essentially each state has a number of electoral votes given their population, and the first candidate to reach 270 is the winner. For Harris, her safe states are Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii, Colorado, New Mexico, Illinois, New York, Vermont, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, D.C., Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Virginia, and Maine's 1st District, as well as Minnesota. Some of these safe states, however, will not go to Harris by as much of a margin as the others, such as Oregon, Minnesota, and Virginia. While these states will all go to Harris, it won't be by a 10 or 15% margin that we've seen in some other states. But still, they will safely go to Harris, and their odds of going to Harris are around 90+%. In terms of Virginia, maybe an 80+%, but it'll still go to Harris. Trump's safe states, on the other hand, are Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Alaska, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Nebraska's 1st, Nebraska's 3rd, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, South Carolina, and Florida, as well as Maine's 2nd District. Additionally, in Trump's case, some of these safe states will not go to him by the 10 or 15% margin for them to be solid red, such as Alaska, Iowa, Texas, Florida, and Ohio. So these safe states will not have as much of a solid red margin, as well as Maine's 2nd, as some of the other states, but they'll still pretty certainly go to Donald Trump in this upcoming election. So after the safe states are tallied up, coincidentally, both candidates are tied with 100 electoral votes remaining. So these 100 will affect this election. Whoever gets 270 first will win. So this is essentially a race to 51 electoral votes. Whoever gets another 51 electoral votes will win this election. So we're first going to start with some wins for Harris. Harris gets closer to the 270 marker with the state of Maine, as well as New Hampshire, both of which are in the Northeast and are states that didn't solidly go to Hillary Clinton or President Joe Biden in the past 2 elections, and New Hampshire even went to Bush back in 2000 but has not gone Republican since. New Hampshire had somewhat of a scare for Clinton in 2016, and so did Maine, but neither went to Trump in 2020 or even came close to it. In terms of polling, both states were polling towards Donald Trump at a certain point in this election. As you can see, Maine was going to Trump against Biden, but it is now going to Harris in Maine's at-large election by as much as 9 percentage points. With New Hampshire, a similar trend has been seen, with Trump actually leading Harris as recently as July 20th, but now he is trailing Harris by as much as 6 percentage points, and both states will go to Kamala Harris in this election, bringing her 225 electoral votes. However, she still needs 45 more votes to win, so this election is not in the bag for Harris just yet. In fact, Trump wins the state of North Carolina, which brings him ahead of Harris. He's now at 235 electoral votes, and Harris needs 10 to tie with him. And why can I say that Trump will win North Carolina? Well, because of these polls. There are only a few polls that even have it close. These polls from the Cook Political Report and this other poll from a partisan sponsor have it close, but every other poll does have Trump in the lead against Kamala Harris in this election, with Trump leading by about an average of 2 to 3 percentage points. And in terms of political betting odds, he actually does have a 62% chance of winning North Carolina. So we can say with pretty solid certainty that Trump will win North Carolina, bring him 10 votes away from Kamala Harris in this upcoming election. But now Harris has a state of her own, and that state is Michigan. Michigan was once an utter toss-up for Trump and Harris, but now it seems like Harris is pulling away with the lead in Michigan. As we can see, she went from losing to Donald Trump to now leading Donald Trump by over 3 percentage points in just under a month. In fact, in this recent poll sponsored by the Independent Center, Harris is leading by 6 percentage points over Donald Trump. So while Trump does have a chance in Michigan, it does seem like Harris will win the state of Michigan, and in fact, betting odds have Harris having a 66% chance of winning Michigan over Donald Trump. And now we can see that Harris is 30 electoral votes away from 270, currently leading Trump by 5. But Trump is not out of this election just yet. He has some more states of his own, starting with Arizona. So Arizona has gotten closer in the past weeks, like every other state has, with Harris actually leading in the polling averages currently. But in this past poll, Trump did lead by +1. And in almost every other poll, Trump is winning in Arizona. It is just a few polls that have Harris leading. These two polls are essentially the same, just one has RFK Jr. and one does not. So this can be classified as two different polls. But most polls do have Trump in the lead in the state of Arizona. And if we look at betting markets, Trump has slightly over 50% chance to win Arizona. So Trump will win Arizona, but Arizona is essentially a coin flip. My prediction in Arizona would be as accurate as just doing this. Heads and Trump gets the state, tails and Harris gets it. Okay, Trump gets the state with heads. That is essentially what you're looking at in this election. With Arizona, Trump is barely getting Arizona, and the coin flip implies it, so we're giving Arizona to Trump. So Trump currently leads by 6 electoral votes over Harris, but 11 of those votes are essentially pure toss-up votes. But still, we'll count them nonetheless. And we get to the state of Wisconsin. So Harris is trying to get a lead over Donald Trump with Wisconsin. And she can do it. She is leading by now 3.5 percentage points over Trump in Wisconsin, with one poll saying she is leading by +9 over Donald Trump, with Trump only getting 40% of the vote. While I do think this is an outlier, I think Harris does have a better chance than Trump in winning in Wisconsin, as the betting markets also imply, with the Democrats leading Donald Trump, Harris leading Trump with about a 59% chance at Wisconsin, and Trump has fallen to a 41% chance. So while Wisconsin will be closer than Michigan, it does seem like it will go to Kamala Harris. And she needs 20 votes to win. And she can get one vote from Nebraska second. So her BP pick is from Nebraska. The Democrats have won Nebraska second. They won it back in 2020, even though Trump won in 2016. And Republicans seem to win it before recently. But it seems like Biden won it in 2020 by a decent margin. Harris is leading in the markets with an 84% certainty. It seems like she will win Nebraska second. It may not even be a tilt district. Seems like it'll be a little less close than tilt. And now Harris only needs 19 electoral votes to win. So now Pennsylvania can bring Harris over the finish line, or Harris has to just win Georgia and Nevada. However, for Trump to win, he has to win at least 2 of these remaining 3 states, and he must win the state of Pennsylvania to even have a chance at winning this election. So we'll leave Pennsylvania for the end, and we'll first go to Georgia. And Georgia is another state that has been polling towards Donald Trump, and this is no surprise. In 2016, it went to Trump by about 5, and it only went to Biden by 0.24 in 2020. And according to the recent polls, Trump is leading in the state of Georgia. But this last poll was from August 3rd, so we have to take that with a grain of salt, and we have to look at the betting markets, which do have Trump leading in Georgia with a 54% certainty. So it does seem like Georgia is extremely close in this upcoming election, but Trump is in the lead. And now we get to Nevada, which will not really decide this election unless something else happens, because Nevada would only bring Trump to 268. But we'll go look at Nevada nonetheless. And in Nevada, Donald Trump is leading in the current polls, with him leading according to the partisan pollster, the Trafalgar Group. But according to all other polls, Trump does seem to be in the lead, except the Bloomberg poll and this poll sponsored by The Telegraph. Trump is leading in the vast majority of polls in Nevada, and according to the polling average, Trump is in the lead. However, according to betting markets, Harris is narrowly in the lead in the state of Nevada. So I guess Nevada is a pure toss-up. With the polls going to Trump, the betting markets going to Harris, we'll do another coin flip, honestly. With Trump winning in the state of Nevada, taking home Nevada, and he now gets the 268 electoral votes over Kamala Harris. And finally, we get to the state that will decide this election most likely, being Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania offers 19 electoral votes, but all Trump needs is 2, and Harris needs 19. So we'll see if Pennsylvania will go to Harris or will it go to Trump. And Pennsylvania does go to Harris. You can see Harris is leading in almost every poll in Pennsylvania. Biden won Pennsylvania. Clinton barely lost Pennsylvania, and Democrats have won Pennsylvania time and time again. So it would be kind of a shocker if Trump wins, but he still has a 43% chance. But we can see that Harris wins the state of Pennsylvania. but it does seem like Pennsylvania will be the decider in this election. Harris will win 270 to 268 against Donald Trump. And if you want more of these, make sure to like and subscribe. And thank you for watching.